Hi, Minister. Good to see you. Thanks for making the time.
Thank you.
I wanted to start off right off the bat in your new portfolio. I know your government has been very explicit and not shy about your opposition to the federal carbon tax. Today, there's new data out from the Department of Environment and Climate Change that shows, according to Statistics Canada data, Canada's emissions would be nearly 11% higher by 2030 without carbon pricing. If it is working, given the impact of climate change, why are you against it?
The report also suggests there'd be a $25 billion hit to the economy. The impact of the carbon tax in Ontario has been incredibly perilous on working people. Our opposition from 2018, we campaigned to the people of Ontario in opposition to a regressive tax that actually is not reducing emissions and is leading to higher costs on the people of Ontario. I mean, independent, the PBO and the FAO and everyone in between have been very clear. This is raising costs on people, on families, on seniors. And so we're going to stand up against the tax. I mean, look, we believe in the responsibility of reducing emissions. Ontario's leading the way. We're on track to meet our emission targets by 2030 without imposing taxes on the people of Ontario. And I think the Premier has been very clear and convicted in his defense of affordability at a time when the federal government has overseen a great rise in the cost of living, inflation, and the price of goods. We have a responsibility to uphold affordability, and that's our priority number one going into the summer and fall, and that's my mandate too, to ensure affordable energy.
And I do understand the issue of affordability, but when you say, for example, it's not working, the data does show that it is and that it will, that the emissions would be 11% higher without it. That's not nothing.
Look, I mean, our government is reducing our greenhouse gas emissions. We're on track to meet our targets. I'm aware that the feds are not with the federal tax. We've done it without carbon taxation. So when political parties in Ontario, we see this with the Liberals, where they try to create an either-or proposition, either you're for economic growth or you're for environmental protection. Our position is, why can't we do both? Ontario is a case study. We are literally growing our economy at unprecedented rates. We repatriated 700,000 jobs. We've created them, repatriated all the jobs the former Liberal government lost in the manufacturing. We've got Volkswagen and Honda and Stellantis. Massive, game-changing investment without a federal carbon tax. So we choose economic prosperity, environmental protection. Those concepts could coexist. And that's the difference between the ideological approach we're seeing amongst Liberal parties. And the provincial Liberals have gone much further. I mean, they've tabled legislation in Ontario that would make the carbon tax seem modest when they're trying to literally eliminate natural gas from families' dependence. I mean, on our hottest days and our coldest winters, natural gas is the ultimate insurance policy for Ontario. And I just can't imagine a world by which we would single-handedly deny natural gas access and impose higher carbon tax rates on working people, on the cost of goods, on groceries, on babies' goods. It seems nonsensical. The data underpins our truth that this tax is frankly regressive, and it hurts the lowest income, fixed income pensioners, and I just think it's bad public policy. And the popularity of this policy, I think, tells a story too. Ontarians and Canadians oppose it, and there's a reason for it. It costs a ton.
I just not interrupt. There's just a lot to unpack there, and I just want to make sure that everything you're saying is accurate. Because even when you reference, for example, the investments that your government has made into the electric vehicle supply side, right, which you view as a job-creating measure, but also one that will help address climate change. The federal government has been your partner in all of that. And when I was interviewing the ambassador from Japan, he made a point of talking about how this federal government and Canada's environmental regime contributed to the kinds of decisions that are being made by companies like Honda and the other companies that you reference. So why is it all bad? It looks like it's actually contributing to a reputational boost for our country's action on climate change.
We've worked with the federal government to attract investment wherever possible. That relationship is sound and is critical. We're always going to put the provincial interest ahead of political interest. So our premiers led the way, working with the federal government, working with mayors of different political persuasions. That's a strength in our government. We're being pragmatic. We're doing what's right for the people of Ontario. Having said that, we're also standing up against regressive imposition of a higher tax on Ontario families and consumers, which we believe is not helping to grow the economy. It is not helping to put money on the table. I mean, there are independent assessments that the increase of the move away from natural gas, or of course issues like the carbon tax, is literally costing families much more than they're getting back. So I do appreciate the importance of interprovincial relationships. We've got a wonderful one with all levels of government. We're going to keep leaning into that. We've got to do that for the purpose of attracting this investment. However, a mature relationship could disagree on public policy. What we're saying to the feds for many years now is, look, when it comes to the increasing price on families, on people, in a time of great economic stress, when the cost of living is on the rise, inflation is still so high. Look, we disagree, and we're going to stand up. I mean, look, we went to the Supreme Court in opposition to the federal imposition of the carbon tax. Our position has been clear and consistent. We're going to continue to stand up for affordability while also ensuring that we have a reliable and a clean, but most particularly an affordable energy grid that is going to allow us to fuel growth. And that's our commitment. It's why today I announced that we've completed phase one and we're entering phase two, announced the start of phase two on Canada and the G7's first small modular reactor. We're expanding Bruce Power, and we're extending the life of Pickering, a nuclear plant. We're massively investing to build our economy, but we disagree philosophically with the Liberals, provincially, most particularly in the federal government, where they believe that an increase in tax on the people of Ontario is going to in any way help make life affordable. But we've proven you do not need a carbon tax to reduce emissions. Our province, unlike the feds, respectfully, are actually on track to meet our targets without raising taxes. And that's our commitment.
I know, but part of that is the imposition of the federal carbon tax, which comes because your government got rid of the cap and trade program, which, according to the Financial Accountability Office, in the long run would have cost Ontario's families less than what the abdication of it or the removal of that as a program did with the carbon tax. And when it comes to the issue of affordability, there's also how much climate change impacts that, right? How much it ends up costing families, because that same office concluded that the dangers of a changing climate could add more than $4 billion a year to the cost of maintaining Ontario's public infrastructure. It isn't binary, right? Like there is, I know that you're painting the federal carbon tax as the only thing that's making life more unaffordable, but the cost of climate change makes life a lot less affordable for Ontarians as well.
Well, I certainly would agree it's not the only driver of increasing costs, but it's one that the federal government is singularly responsible for. And we, of course, disagree on the merits. It is not achieving its environmental aims, and it's most particularly is regressive and hurts working people. On that latter basis alone, we're saying no. We do not agree with the premise. Now, you speak about GHG reductions. We are on track to meet them without raising taxes. So I just want to challenge those in Ottawa and in our opposition who believe the only way you reduce emissions is by increasing taxation. That is just simply not true. And
to be fair, that's not all they're doing. And to be fair, Ontario moved away from coal, and that's helped a lot.
It certainly has. And it was a progressive conservative government that started the first coal plant to be closed commenced under our government. So we understand the premise of this. This is the party that literally expanded the largest subway expansion that's going to remove millions of vehicles from the road in Canadian history. In fact, the largest subway expansion on the continent is happening under our premier. We eliminated in Hamilton, we have coal-fired, we have electric arc furnaces that have removed literally the equivalent of tens of thousands of vehicles. We are leading by example by investing in public infrastructure that is reducing emissions. But again, we are doing all of that without raising taxes. And that's the fundamental contrast you see in the Ontario legislature, where we stand alone. There's a party, the Liberal Party in Ontario, literally believes it is in the public interest to raise the carbon tax and to eradicate natural gas from homes. To say
just to be fair, the Liberals provincially have not come out in favor of the federal carbon tax, right? I did an interview with Ms. Crombie. She would not answer for a long time. And then a little bit while later, they did come out with a position that articulated they were not essentially in favor of the federal carbon tax. Not quite fair to depict it the way you are.
The provincial Liberal Party has been on the record as enthusiastic supporters of federal taxation on carbon. And to your point, you did ask the leader of the Liberal Party, Bonnie Crombie, 20 times her position, and she was evasive until she conducted a poll and read the room and said, look, maybe carbon tax isn't a good idea. But the truth is,
now she's saying it's not.
No, but Vassy, that's just political expediency, and you know politicians all too well. I mean, look, if you have a record of it advocating for a tax, you then introduce private members' bills or legislation in the legislature that supports higher taxes and the elimination of natural gas. It is my position, and I think most sensible people's position, that all you're doing is trying to appeal, allowing political expediency instead of actually taking a real position that has been longstanding, confirmed by the provincial party. They have favored it. That the leader, Bonnie Crombie, is on the record in favor of carbon taxes in the past. So, look.
I get what you're saying, and that's why I asked her so many questions. Like, to be fair, like, I understand that, but they have established a position now, and it's not what you're depicting it as.
Well, I think I'm simply challenging the veracity of her position. I mean, this is a person that just lost two by-elections on the basis of being out of touch with the perspectives, aspirations, and priorities of Ontario families. So I'm challenging the credibility of Bonnie Crombie, the great champion of carbon taxation up until a public opinion poll comes out saying it's a really bad idea and she wants to win an election. No one believes it, and I would challenge you and others to not believe it because it's just simply not the long-standing position of their party. They want to import the federal carbon tax to the province and other concepts like the elimination of natural gas. It is just simply out of touch and is dangerous economic policy to allow families to pay the price for ideology. And we're just simply going to say no. We're going to support nuclear. We're going to support natural gas. We're going to support renewables. But what we're not going to support is higher tax. That's the fundamental point. Look, we're the first government in a generation under the Premier's leadership, Doug Ford, that has not raised the tax. That's a critical contrast in our approach, increasing revenues through economic growth.
I mean, you're spending a lot going into debt, though. You're one of the highest spending governments ever.
My point simply is when it comes to the impact on people, which is the part of our conversation, we oppose raising taxes on the single mom, on the seniors and pensioners at home, on families who are already challenged by, to your point on spending, that's rising inflation at the federal level. We understand the necessity. We have a credible plan to return to balance. This is not an issue of the provincial spending's impact on inflation. The carbon tax increased inflation and hurting working people. And so we are challenging them, urging them to eradicate the tax. I mean, we want the same deal Atlantic Canada had, which is our families too should receive that type of relief. Ontarians pay some of the highest costs of living. I mean, the cost of rent and buying a home in this province. It always was high in the Federation, but we believe Ontarians should have equitable access to their dollars. They know best how to spend it, not Ottawa. And we're going to oppose the carbon tax. We're going to continue to oppose regressive Liberal policy that hurts families. And I just can't imagine a world that Bonnie Crombie and the Liberals provincially are going to do anything other than seek to get elected, only then to introduce higher taxes to the families of this province.
Okay, I'm out of time. You know this is a political show. I got to ask you one political question, Minister. You moved from education exactly a week ago to energy. A federal MP who was just elected, who used to work with you, Jamil Javani, posted this on Twitter. Ontario has desperately needed a new education minister for years. I hope real policy changes are coming, so this will be remembered as a great day for all students, parents, and teachers. Do you have a response to him?
I was appointed a few days ago, and I left to go to Romania just days ago to announce a $360 million deal that's going to attract investment and create jobs in Ontario, exporting Canadian nuclear expertise in Durham. And so I was proud, and I'm going to keep focused on actually delivering investments and creating jobs and delivering affordable, reliable energy. That's my priority. I'm not here to do politics. I'm here to advance the interests of families in a very serious ministry. And I understand, the desire in our political system. But my priority is actually just getting things done. And there's a reason why 3 days into the job, I flew to Romania, returned with a deal that is $360 million, exporting our technology to the world, can-do technology. It's an exciting time. And I'm just going to stay focused on the job and on delivering affordable energy for families and standing up to the federal Liberal carbon tax.
Is there an issue between your party and the federal Tory party?
We have good relations with the federal Conservatives, as we do with provincial Conservative movements across the country. And we're going to continue to harness that for good.
I'll leave it on that note. Minister, I appreciate you making the time very much. Thank you.
Thank you.